Hey everybody, my name is Roger Archer and I'm with my great friend Rjay Barsh. Hi Rjay.
How you doing, Pastor Rod?
Doing so good, man. And just so you all know, we have history, Rjay and I. So Rjay, why don't you walk us through a little bit of our history from your lens? Because I could just spit it out, but why don't you say from your lens what our context is?
Man, I just remember being in Puyallup and just running around downtown and always seeing you in the community and seeing little Jake running around and then just when I did come to the church with Andrew Gard and just other people in the community, your influence in words and blow-bys, like stop by and see me and be like, "Hey, RJ, I think you have the ability to do this." I'm a high schooler, I'm not thinking, okay, this is going to happen. Or even when I was at TCC and you're telling me this is probably how you should move in this area. And so what I always respected about our relationship is you were not a mentor who does not tell me what I should do. Like you don't just give suggestions. Like you're like, this is what you should do right now.
Yeah.
And you've been there in the highs, you've been there in the lows. And that's how I see the lens, is because I always know when I come to Tacoma, Puyallup area, I'm driving through Puyallup Foursquare. Like, when my family was in church, we moved to Renton. That's where we came to church.
Yeah.
And so I've always had that relationship. And then your love for basketball, your love for hoops, your love for people, and then just a competitive spirit. I know I can tell you this. The one thing that I took from you in our relationship is the energy is always on 10. And with that energy, I've had to make a lot of apologies because I have that energy, but people know what they're going to get from me. And I'd rather that be who I am than never have to make an apology for who I am. And I always remember like seeing you in the pews and you come up to me and I'm like, he just got done preaching 19 services and he comes and talks to me like I'm the first person he talked to today. And it's genuine. So for me, that's always been there. And then just like, not just being there to help in scenarios that I needed help in, but having the prophetic insight to say, hey, this is going to be around the corner for you.
Yeah.
Here's how you should approach it.
Yeah.
And then everywhere I've been, I've made sure to have some of your influence come with me. So when I was at Southeastern, we were doing a retreat, here's who needs to come. Like, this is important. And so for me, you've always been that loud voice behind me that keeps me going.
Great. And what I've always really appreciated about you, Rjay, is you have been you. You have not had any pretense from the time you were in high school, when you're at TCC, when you're coaching at Southeastern, and now at Boise State University, yo. Hey, congratulations, by the way, Broncos. Go Broncos.
Broncos, baby.
Do you like the colors, though?
I love blue and orange, but I kind of got, when I was in Florida, blue and orange was always them Gators.
Right.
And so the blue and orange, it does fit. It fits well now because this makes sense. I know what the logo means to us. And so I love putting it on.
Right. Well, our country is in unparalleled times. We are having these convergent rivers of crazy rise and falls of stock markets and financial economies. We're having this convergence of this pandemic that we've never seen. We've had pandemics, but never just governmental reactions to the pandemic.
Yeah.
And then just with the atrocities that have happened within the context of the Black community as it pertains to what we've been watching on television and the media and social media. And what I promised my people is that I was going to have some genuine conversations of people of color, because there's a lens that I'll never be able to tell you, oh, from a Black man's perspective, this is how it is, because I've never been a Black man, obviously. And so I can only guess, I can only sympathize, but I can't empathize. I can't get into the cornea and the lens of your pupil to see how you see it. So just, this is completely unscripted, right? Obviously. But what I'd like you to begin with, RJ, is just would you just tell our people what it is that you're seeing on the landscape of our country right
I'll go from a standpoint of I think everyone can agree right now we need racial reconciliation.
now? Hmm.
And anything that needs to be reconciled means it was once together.
Mm.
And I have nowhere in my mind where we were together except for in Christ.
Right, right.
So for us to acknowledge that we need that is that to acknowledge the sin nature we've had when it comes to judgment of people, separation of people. Because 100 out of 100 people I've talked to have agreed that racial reconciliation needs to happen. Maybe not understanding that, like I said, to reconcile means to have once been together.
Mm-hmm.
What I also see across the world is people not really understanding that Black men, to an extent, have learned how to survive in environments that other people can wake up and thrive in without trying. And
Mm-hmm.
our survival instinct sometimes allow us to endure things and not say certain things simply because we need to provide for our families too. And I think what we're seeing now is a lot of Black men are upset with themselves, 35 to 50, because they made it in through a system without impacting it simply because they let these small jokes go by, or they let, the discrimination they felt go by because they had to support their family.
Right.
And what I'm seeing now is the 15 to the 21-year-olds saying, look, I don't want to have to survive in the system.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be able to thrive too.
Right.
And then to understand this, and I'm in a family of 7, and every last one of us, from happening to Puyallup to Tacoma to Lakeland, Florida, have been pulled over and with no crime history and a degree from UPS, a degree from Central, years coaching, have had guns at my window. So understanding that that's a real thing. The story that I tell people often is I know a young man who couldn't get into his car, and he was with some friends and they were sitting at the side of the road, and it was late. It was about 1 a.m. And he's sitting with his friends, and his one Black guy and 3 white friends are from the same area. And the cops come over, granted, and he's glad he called the cops. He needs to get in his car.
Right.
And they're everyone's happy, everyone's nice. Oh, we'll help you out. We call AAA, this and that. And they start asking for IDs, and they're going to ask for IDs, and go to the white guy, and nothing happens. Black, and then they come up to the young Black man, and they ask for the ID, and he has to say, "Sir, I'm going to reach into my back pocket to get my ID."
Oh.
And as he reaches into his back pocket, the cop goes and puts his hand on his hip. And the young man said, "Coach, like, what's crazy is he had a taser, a baton, he had handcuffs, but his hand went to his gun."
Mm.
And so that's the reality of the severity of the scenario is the deadly force comes without filters for us. And so we're at a point in time where people say, "Oh, we're tired, we're exhausted." Yeah, that's true. But we want to make sure that our sons don't look at us in 30 years and say, "You didn't do anything."
Yeah.
And so that's the landscape that I see. And then there's just a political climate that is divisive on both sides. And people are choosing alliances based on their economical gain and not based on their heart. And that's why we have to reconcile
Yeah.
races, because the separation is happening in our checkbooks, and love should be happening there.
Yeah. So you have a son.
Yes, 2.
You have 2 sons. Sorry.
Just
And
had
and their ages are
22 and 9 months in a few days. So June 13th will be 9 months.
congratulations, man.
And Grayson.
So there's a gap.
Yes.
Now, your oldest son, his name is,
Arson.
yeah, and your youngest son is Grayson.
Yeah.
Okay. So in that age gap, how far have we traveled as a society between um uh, okay, so I'm gonna put it out there for
Yeah.
us, okay? I'm gonna get real with you. How far have white people traveled in this gap of your two sons to become more equitable and less bias? I think racist is the peak of it, because I think there are levels, like, right? So,
Yeah.
so there's a bias, there's prejudice, and then there's racism. Uh, how far have we traveled, or have we traveled at all, or do you see a distance of getting better, or is just 20 years same?
I feel like we've traveled now I'm speaking from my experience.
Yep, yep. That's what I'm asking for.
We have traveled uh, a bit of ways, but I think one thing that we've traveled into is we traveled into, if I do this, I won't be seen as. So let me do this. So we've traveled into a space of uh, doing the action so you don't feel like you're discriminating, or you don't feel like you're being racist, versus getting to know the blood behind that black man, so you don't have to do the action, so it just happens naturally,
Okay, so
right?
let me qualify. I don't mean to cut you off. Let me qualify this. Let me make sure I got it. So what I hear you saying is there's not a depth of the action. It's not coming from the heart, more coming from the head, knowing how we ought to speak and ought to act, but it's more robotic than it is organic.
Yes. Yes. So
Did I capture it?
yes, example would be institutions now have diversity inclusion roles, so now they feel like they are accepting of all people,
Mm-hmm.
when accepting of all people is not creating a role, which that is important.
Right.
There's a human behind all those scenarios.
Wow.
So the example that I've used for people is, if you are the CEO of your company and you created an avenue for black men or black women or people to have a voice, and you feel proud about that, congratulations. But then if you also drive home, get out of your car, and you see a black man and you don't say hello, that I have a scenario, we have a situation, because you're putting your action into a program when you need to put your action into your heart. Like, we can't talk about peace and then get in line at the grocery store and be mad at the teller for taking too long.
Yeah.
So it's like we have to practice these words that we know. We know the words. We have enough history on YouTube. We have enough for us to now become the words that we're screaming, for us to now live out these things.
Yeah. So RJ, man, I'm sorry. Sorry. Um, how do we do that? How do we help coach white people to integrate the intellectual into the cathartic? How do we orient people from going from something that's in our head to our heart, so it's not what we do, it's who we are? Are there practical steps that you could?
I think for me and with my children, we have to raise our social consciousness just for people
Mhm.
in general. Like, so we have to watch what we put into the minds of our young people before they can have defensive mechanisms of what they want in their mind.
Right.
So from our music to our movies to TV to, like, all these systems that are built on entertainment and built on gory details make you numb to people. There's no denying that. Um, and so I think the applicable tool people can use is, most young white men, and I would say most young white kids, let's say from the age of 6 months to 10 years old, will only know, outside of an athlete who's a celebrity, about Martin Luther King. So if that is true, in their mind, they feel like all the CEOs, politicians, doctors, lawyers, inventors, scientists all look like them.
Mhm.
So how are they supposed to look at a young black boy and believe they can be anything outside of a rapper or a basketball player if this is all that they see?
Right.
And so there has to be a way in your home where you intertwine the W.E. Du Bois, the Marcus Garveys, the inventors, the Madam C.J. Walkers. There's got to be a way to where you intertwine these type of individuals. So when your daughter is in class in the 4th grade and she sees, Suzanne, who's a black girl, she says she knows that Suzanne has the ability to be more than anything that she doesn't even she can't even say what she can be because she knows it's unlimited.
Mhm.
I think that is the first thing that white parents can do is educate their children, and not aggressively, but you have to weave it in a way that's
Mhm.
sustainable.
Yeah.
Like you don't go into their bedroom and put up a Black Lives Matter poster. Go into their bedroom and say, tonight we're going to learn about Simon the Cyrene, who helped Jesus carry the cross, who is one of the black men in the Bible. And we're going to talk about how his son watched him carry the cross, and then his son also helped in the ministry with one of the disciples. That's a black man. Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
Like, do you have to weave it in that way to where it's not February and it's Black History Month?
Yes. Okay. Okay. So uh, I have a lot of good friends in
Mm-hmm.
my life, and I count you as one of them. By the way, I treasure our friendship. And you're how old now, RJ?
37.
Yeah, 37. And so there's a little gap between us. But nevertheless, I consider you a peer and I consider you a friend. Help me communicate to a white audience of how we should go about intentionally seeking out people that don't look like us with our pigment to become friends. Is there a natural way so that it's not coerced, not forced, not awkward? Is there a certain way that we can think? Because I try to go back in my mind, like, what is it that made me seek out people of color to say, I want to be friends with that guy.
Yeah.
Because I can't categorically say in my mind what made me do that, but is there a way that we can think about, because I think that once people that are white begin to cross those lines and make authentic, genuine friendships, there's going to be that organic sense of everybody looking around going, oh, that's normal. Oh, that's natural. Oh, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Something we can do.
Because I would imagine that the people listening, because I've sat in those chairs, are people that believe that Jesus Christ is the answer. So I would say this: it is so uncomfortable for you white people to engage in those relationships because they feel fake, right? At first, like, oh, I'm going to be friends with the black person. You may be feeling that, but
Yeah.
I will tell you, you deserve to feel uncomfortable because we have to feel uncomfortable in America and we can't run from it.
Yeah.
And you can silo yourself into a scenario where you don't have to ever feel uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm telling you, it will be awkward. It will be uncomfortable. And there will be a black person that will say this is fake and it's not real. Yeah. Get ready for that conversation. We don't get to live safe.
Yeah.
This is our Jericho Road. This is the part where we have to, not look at the body that's down there and say, I hope somebody has ministry there, but be the ministry,
Right.
which is take a different direction and get out of your radius of living if you want to change it.
Yeah.
You want to change it. You don't have to tweet about it, talk about it. That to me is the diversity inclusion. That's the part,
Mechanical.
the angle. Like, oh, I'm going to do this. No, 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 no. Say next Sunday, we're going to go have dinner at Southern Kitchen, and we're going to go have dinner in Tacoma. So we're going to integrate out into Black culture.
Thank you.
What is Black culture? I don't know, but we're going there, and we're going to sit, and we're going to be uncomfortable, and we're going to feel like we're being looked at weird, and then we're going to get in our car, and we're going to say, man, we love those people.
Okay, so what I'm gonna type this down. What is the name of the restaurant again in T-Town?
Several, and I can send you some that you can give like a handout. But there's, I mean,
Do it. Okay.
just coming for 7. So I know there's a Southern Kitchen was one, but I have a handout that has plenty of Black-owned businesses.
And Shorty's? Have you been to Shorty's?
The barbershop?
Yeah.
Definitely been to Shorty's.
I ain't going to Shorty's, bro.
Yeah, you're not going to Shorty's. But I think the earlier you can do that for your child, because here's interesting, Pastor Roger, is the child won't be uncomfortable because they have not learned they should be.
Oh, say that again.
The child won't be uncomfortable because they have not learned that they should be.
That's so good, RJ.
And so the parent, you don't protect your child. You're protecting yourself, and you're using your child as an excuse.
Like a shield.
And so it's got to be, yeah, it's like the shield. But it feels like the right thing because everyone around us is also doing it. Right. And so, like, if you go to that deal, you find out. I mean, it's gonna open your eyes, one, to the acceptance of the person behind the skin color.
Yeah.
And that's racial reconciliation, because that's evangelism. You're taking your life and you're weaving it into the life of another. Yeah. That is extremely important in this season of America.
Man, I think of all the things I've heard, and I've watched a lot of these podcasts, and that's why I've kind of established the baseline of what we're going today. But I think that's the most profound thing I've heard anyone say, is just go into the Black community where you would just steer, you would go the long way around to get around it, or that's the rough part of town, or hey, I don't like the food in that place, I don't get those people over there. No, you go insert yourself in that place. Yeah. Make yourself feel uncomfortable. Yeah. Give a big good tip to your server. Yep. And just be Jesus with skin on, right?
Yeah, and just go eat.
And go eat food.
Because, like, I'll tell you this, you hear things like the rough part of town, or low income environment, or this and that. Well, imagine what Black people hear about Puyallup. And so if they see you coming across that bridge of just going to eat with my family, why are you here? Why? No one's going to probably ask you why you're there.
Right.
But in your heart.
They may wonder it, but they...
But here's one thing I tell people every single time I have these conversations is, if your heart and your spirit is in the right place and you happen to do the wrong thing, mm-hmm. I am a firm believer that God will take your spirit and put it in front of your action.
Come on.
So you don't have time to learn how to move in the scenario.
Right.
You don't have time to say, okay, what are the words to say? What words shouldn't I say? No, if you walk in there and you have empathy and the spirit of love, mm-hmm. you don't have to worry about if I say the wrong thing or we're wearing. No.
And, hey, do you know what I'm going to do?
Yeah.
This is what I'm going to do for real. I'm going to get my entire church staff, and once a week, we're going to go to this list of restaurants that you're going to give me and go be a blessing. And we're just going to go occupy tables, and we're going to go have conversations, and we ain't going to go to the trendy. I mean, anybody can do the trendy, right?
Yeah.
We can go down to Ruston Way and be in the trendy. But if we're really, I mean, come on, I want to be part of the solution. And
yeah. If you do it that way, I would say, if you do it that way to where you take your staff, I would say then within 2 weeks, your staff will have to have maybe taken another person with them to another one of those restaurants.
Good.
But don't do it as a one-off event. So okay, here's where we normally eat lunch this way. This week we're gonna go do lunch this way, because the intentions got to be pure for everyone, because
Right.
that's when the spirit will go in the room with you.
Spirit.
If they think if people are going out of obligation, and now that why we're doing this, oh, because America's having these racial problems. Yeah, that's why we're doing it. Like that's the issue. Like,
Yeah, right.
that's the deal. And here's like my end goal when I have these conversations, especially with the police brutality and in that scenario, is if a 5-year-old white boy who wants to be in law enforcement because he loves what it looks like to serve and protect, if all he knows is the blacks on TV,
Yeah,
how does he know to serve and protect that group?
he doesn't.
But if at 5 he's eating somewhere and he sees another 5-year-old roll by and just bumping and dap him up, and he daps him up, now he's seeing himself in them.
Yes.
And then when he becomes a law enforcement, when he pulls a young black man over, he don't see the potential danger. Yeah, he's smart. He operates within the scope of his influence,
Right.
but he also sees every silent experience he's had with the black man that helps him not racially profile this one that he's pulled over. Can imagine you go your whole life and the only 3 kind of black men you see are rappers, ballers, and convicts. Well, when you pull somebody over, they really have maybe one option of in that paradigm to be.
Yeah.
And if you can help erase that, it's mild. That's why it's so tough, because it's a mild, just a mild climb how those paradigms become into our mind.
Right.
And the reason I know that is because I did grow up in Tacoma and the Hilltop, and then I did grow up in Puyallup, and I went to Central, then I went to the University of Puget Sound, then I coached at Lincoln High School, and then I coached at Southeast. I've seen white community, black community. I've seen people raise their kids, and I'm able to see, okay, why did that one? Why does he think that way? Why does this one think that if we go out, he should, pay for me? And I love black people. You don't have to. I actually make more money than you, bro. So you don't have to it's like you don't have to feel that way. And so I think if you weave it into those scenarios, it will work.
You have such a wonderful, unique perspective on this because of your well-rounded diversification. I mean, you really have. I mean, UPS is the Harvard of the West Coast, man. That's the elite. Elite go there, and you've been able to thrive, RJ, as a black man in a white man's world. Can you kind of unpack that just a little bit?
My dad and my mom were very aggressive in making sure we knew who we are. So when I'm in the 3rd grade, I'm reading books on kings and queens in Africa. Mm. When I'm in the 6th grade, I'm reading about the blacks in the Bible. So I'm doing book reports once a week.
With dad?
With my dad. My dad got so upset with the school system that he went to start his own school. And just so he could make sure that our minds would see beyond who we were supposed to be and who we are based on who we've been in the past.
Yeah.
So I think for black parents, if you can help your young men know their history that's not taught in schools, mm-hmm. the power in your identity is so strong. And a lot of young men don't find that until they're older. And then they hear about the Nat Turners. Then they hear about the Tuskegee Institute. They hear about these things late. They hear about them to where they have to learn about them.
Yeah.
I learned about them where I could feel before I could know.
Mm.
And that's at an early age. So my dad and my mom were very influential in that regard. Now, did I enjoy it? I probably enjoyed it more than my other brothers at times because I was my heart is that way, my spirit's bent that way.
Yeah.
But there were moments where I was like, why do I have to read about Sojourner Truth? Why do I have to know about Harriet Tubman? You know, why is it important to know who invented the toilet or who invented actually the filament of the light bulb before the light bulb was invented? Why is it important for me to know these things? But then on top of that, I could recite the first, second, and third chapters of Proverbs. So my parents were very aggressive in educating us in that regard. And I think that's why we see it. I see it how I see it.
Mm. Okay, so I think it's incumbent upon us as parents
Mm-hmm.
then to not just stick a video in front of our kids' face as medication or here, be quiet, watch this YouTube video, this cartoon or whatever. But we really have to have an action plan about well-rounding. Now, can you imagine, RJ, what would it be like for a white parent to say, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to read some books about different ethnicities than we. What would it be like if people of my disposition and my pigment said, and I wish I could have a redo here on this one thing as a parent, because as I'm listening to you talk right now, which is what I'm hoping, I'm going to seed something in the young parents in my purview. If I could do a redo, I would have done a better job about the Tuskegee Institute, about Harriet Tubman and the Underground Railroad, and about Dr. King. And I would have done a better job just talking about the exploits and how at once upon a time, Africa was the intellectual center of the universe. And Ethiopia was the center of academia and education and art and literature. It was the center, right? In the time of Jesus, that was where the center was of the brilliance of the thinking. And I miss that. I just like, man, Roger, how could you have missed that? But I did. But I can't change that now. But what I can do is maybe help institute into these young parents, right, that are white, to say, hey, look, there's a lot of greatness that come from different ethnicities than just people.
Yeah, and that conversation would be good because I was having a conversation with a white parent the other day in our neighborhood, and they were asked kind of the same question. And I said, let me give you an analogy. If you had your 2-year-old was sitting in front of the TV, and there were 2 channels on, and one channel was the protests and everybody going crazy, and the next channel was Rambo and the bloody, gory battle on the battlefield of just watching Rambo, and you're trying to teach them about what's going on. What do you do? Or what channel do you let them watch?
Mm-hmm.
And the parent thinks, yeah, I probably let them watch Rambo because it's just a movie. I said, no, you turn the TV off.
There you go.
You turn the TV off. We're letting the wrong people teach our kids. And it's got to be uncomfortable. The conversation's got to be uncomfortable.
Yes.
Because here's what you deserve, white people. And this may come across as a bit provocative, but here's what you deserve. You deserve the uncomfortable conversation, because when my son turned 16 and he got in his first car, I had to teach him how to be pulled over. You did not.
Right.
So you deserve to feel uncomfortable of, how do I do this now?
It's good.
It's part of the process.
It's part of the process. Yeah. No, 100%. 100%. You're right.
It doesn't make you a bad person because you don't know. It makes you white.
Right? That's it. Hey, have you seen the Netflix series All American?
I watched a little bit of it, but I didn't make it through the whole series.
Okay, yeah. So I just finished it, season 2. They only had 2 seasons, and season 3 is coming out in 2021. And one of the conversations that I listened to was exactly what you just said, because they talk about this kid that came from Crenshaw,
Yep,
and
yep,
then he comes into Beverly Hills
yep.
to play football, and he's talking to his white teammates in Beverly Hills. And he's saying, "Listen, you don't know what it means to have to educate your young teenage sons driving, that you're going to have to speak slowly to the police officers and to describe to them what you're about to do.
Mm-hmm.
And you never run, and you do exactly what they say, and you don't raise your, I mean, just the fact he had to orient these guys on a whole different way of thinking, that if you're white, you don't even think about that. Matter of fact, you're talking, you're chirping back, and you're not fearing for your life. You might get a misdemeanor, you might get a slap on the wrist, you might get, somebody, telling you to be quiet, but ain't nobody reaching for their hip.
Yeah, and it's one of those things too where I know a lot of white people are wondering what makes this situation so different.
Yep.
Like, why are we here? Like, this
Now.
has happened before. Why now is it feeling like, oh, we have all this angst and we have to do something?
Yeah.
And here's why I think it is now, is because the generational gap is connecting. You had a lot of Black people who I've spoken to who went to the March on Washington,
Mm-hmm.
right? Were a part of that movement.
Right.
But all they did was march on Washington. They don't know what they did to help the cause the week later.
Yeah, right.
I have friends who remembered being in high school when Rodney King had his disastrous
In LA, yeah.
existence come to an end. And they remember that and they say, well, and now we're here. What makes this different now? Like, why is it different now? And I think that is the growth I think we've kind of made as a society, in a sense, to where our young Black men are not just tired, period. We're tired, comma, time to go to work.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes it different now, is our voices are able to be heard because of these spaces that have technology has created. Yep. And the history is being undeveloped. And so that's why it's different now. And because white people, I think, are coming to the table without the books and an agenda. They're coming to the table and they're saying, okay, what do we do?
Yeah. Just like this right now.
Yeah, this is it.
Okay, so we're starting these conversations, and RJ, I'm so proud of you. The thing that surpasses your absolute brilliant mind, and you have an absolutely brilliant mind, is your voracious heart to love Jesus and to love people. And I am so proud of you. Thank you for what the value you add to my life and to the life down there in Boise right now. And soon you're going to be an NBA coach. I'm prophesying it right now. Inside of 7 years, you're going to be in the NBA coaching, and God is going to give you a seat at the table of a voice to be able to speak on the behalf of Jesus and the less enfranchised and the more polarized. And you're going to be a bridge between ethnic diversity and reconciliation and wholeness, because the Holy Spirit is in you. I want to pray for you right now. Okay, bro?
Yes, sir.
Jesus, I bless my brother. I cover him with the anointing of God. And Father in heaven, I thank you for this season of his life. But when this season has run its course and he goes to the next level, God, I pray that you will give him a clarity of thought, a humility of heart, and an articulate tongue to speak on the behalf of God. I bless his marriage. I bless his boys. I bless everything his hands touch. Let him be blessed in the mighty name of Jesus. I pray it in Jesus' name. Amen.